Scales and Pages. Written by Nikolai Weisskopf. Read for you by Adam R. Watson.
Story 6. The Immortal Ambition. Part 1. Misting rain tickled them from horns to snout. Valstus giggled and stretched into the fluffy clouds beneath them. With a thought, they released the air and water magics binding the vapors together and dived towards the ocean. An arc of their back, a single flap of their wings, and they shot towards the pink-gold horizon, towards the Immaterial Academy. In minutes they reached the coast and soared past the jagged edges of forest. Immediately they began watching in all directions, listened harder. Every single muscle coiled, ready to strike as the grey of graves swallowed the beautiful morning light. Somber silence permeated everything, allowing their drumming wingbeat to roll for miles in all directions. Gruffbark's red, mossy head popped out of the treefolk's facet. For a moment he looked around, then climbed out, scaling Valstus's scales till he sat near their ear.
"Why everything dead?"
he asked with his typical blunt precision. This isn't just the Spectral Magic Academy. It's the Kingdom Vizirath, murdered, Valstus explained haltingly, hoping they wouldn't have to give a full history lesson.
"Who Vizirath?"
Gruffbark asked, either missing or ignoring the hint. A necromancer, Valstus answered absently, busying themselves with looking for the school grounds.
"You hunt death mages?"
Gruffbark asked, his reluctance causing his thorny whiskers to shiver against the base of Valstus's horn. The sensation tickled them, almost enough to distract Valstus from the hesitation in Gruffbark's voice. From head to wing sockets, it took everything they had to not wriggle and buck Gruffbark off. The death mage is dead. I'm hunting his grimoire, Valstus explained, the momentary silliness distracting them from the discomfort of discussing it with Gruffbark. Finally they spied a group of white-robed students, led by a black-robed teacher. Valstus hid the grimace crawling over their scaled features. They didn't feel ready to transition mid-flight. Instead, they settled for landing in an open square ahead of the class. The white robes scattered to the narrow paths between headstones and mausoleums. However, the black robe merely tossed back his hood, showing a bald and beardless head but kind brown eyes. He approached, but stopped at the edge of the square.
"What brings a storm dragon to the Immaterial Academy?"
he asked without preamble or, evidently, even a shred of fear. I need to speak with Archmage Emily, Valstus answered, firm politeness paired with a low rumble from their throat.
"She rests in the earth,"
said the black robe. Valstus knew the meaning, and wished another fallen friend peace in her rest.
"Her daughter is Archmage now," he explained.
Valstus slowly closed their eyes. Tears threatened to fall, as memories of learning spectral magic alongside Emily filled their mind. Where can I find her? They asked. The black-robed man inclined his head.
"Tell me who is looking, and I will find out," he said.
Valstus Narex, they said, curious to see what effect their name would have. The man with no eyebrows stared wide-eyed at them for several moments.
"I will find Archmage Sarah immediately."
He turned and ran down the path he'd came, Most of his class ran after him. A few stayed behind, glancing around corners and ducking when Valstus noticed them.
Sorry, friend dead,
Gruffbark muttered uncertainly, while his twig fingers gently patted the base of a horn. This time it didn't tickle, but reminded them they weren't alone. Thank you. Please, go back to your facet. I need to be smaller, Valstus explained. Without another word, Gruffbark climbed down to the gemstone library and popped inside. Reaching for the magic in and around them, Valstus considered who they were and what form matched them best. They growled when none felt right, sending crackles of lightning through the air. Looking at their claws, they tried a humanoid form without a name. Valstus closed their eyes, prepared to accept the familiar pain. Instead, the gathered magic followed their thoughts, limb by limb. In moments they stood on 2 clawed feet, and only stayed standing because their tail kept them balanced. They couldn't decide if they wanted to smile at the success or scream in confusion. Taking a deep breath calmed them long enough for questions to take the lead. What's different about this transition? Because I'm technically the same species? I was a dragon for decades, so changing the dragon shape is easier? With a thought, they gathered magic and tried to transition their wings to the proper size. Flesh and cartilage grew, stretching till the wings cast a shadow over the whole square, and in seconds pitched Valstus forward, snout first towards the cobblestones. They landed, claws first, piercing mortar and stone alike. "Are you all right?" a concerned matronly voice asked. Valstus looked up to see a plainly dressed mage with a shovel and mud-stained boots. "I will be," they said, and transitioned their wings back to more reasonable dimensions. Standing up, they brushed stone dust off their scales. "So, what brings my mother's comrade in justice to my humble academy?" Sarah asked, a warm smile replacing her concerned expression. "I need to speak with you privately," Valstus answered. Sarah tapped her shovel on the cobbles, and the deathly silence changed to a stillness only possible with magic. "Thank you. An archmage stole Sarah's soul," Valstus said, and watched Sarah's warm smile shrink. "It was Arceus Magistorus. He..." "Stop," Sarah commanded, her lips a thin line of disapproval. "It is dangerous to accuse one of my colleagues, especially since he put that very grimoire in my hands. And by your claim, I would be a second thief, or a thief's fool," she finished, raising the shovel, now glowing with pale blue magic, to point at the dragon like a spear. Valstus's jaw dropped. Fortunately, it didn't unhinge like their reptile cousins, but words utterly failed them. When and why had Arceus abandoned the grimoire? Had he abandoned others? "Care to choose different words?" Sarah challenged. Her spectral magic, combined with the ferocity of her tone, helped rattle Valstus from their shock. "Your mother entrusted that grimoire to me. Arceus stole it. I didn't know he'd thrown it away," they explained, keeping their claws and talons visible, but still, focusing on the shovel allowed Valstus to see Sarah's spell. Primal serpentine instinct screamed at them to raise a defense, as they tried and failed to count all the barbed spectral chains. Memories of fighting alongside Emily casting it leaped to Valstus's mind. How it was equal parts binding and painful, the many screams it caused. That memory stopped in its tracks when pale blue snakeheads took shape, and started hissing at them. "Your mother would be proud of you for improving her spell," Faustus said. Sarah's eyes narrowed, and while she still held the spell, it had stopped growing snakeheads. "What did she call it?" Sarah demanded. "Your mother never named her spells. She believed in strategy over tradition," Faustus answered, and couldn't help smiling at the memory of hunting monsters alongside her old friend. "Correct," Sarah said, dispelling the snake chains on her shovel. "It also makes her grimoire endlessly frustrating to decipher. And Sarah's soul is more cursed than a gift. If you've come to take it back, follow me." Sarah finished and set down a path, several white-robed students tailing her. After many twists and turns, they stepped down an alley reeking of compost. The air turned hot and stank of bittersweet rot mixed with earthy molds. Without a word, the students pushed a cart of rotten foods and wet leaves to reveal a solid steel door they all glared at. This close, Valstus should have been able to feel their scale. Its magic could normally tell them if the grimoire was on its side, splayed open, or if Arceus had dared to scratch it. Instead, they felt nothing. "We will need to confirm that you aren't possessed," Sarah warned, before unlocking the door and stepping inside. Faustus rolled their eyes. Invading minds was always risky. Charging into a storm dragon's mind would leave anything mortal a sizzling pile of ashes. Their first step passed the door, and it slammed shut, casting everything ahead of them into darkness. To their sides were witchlight torches that barely showed the stone walls supporting them. Extending their magical senses explained why. Inside the darkness, they felt more. Sending their senses in all directions showed them an endless void. Faustus took a deep breath, until their scaly chest couldn't fill any more, and roared. The shadow magic rose and fell in waves, in the wake of the deep, raging frustration they'd unleashed. Dust fell from the surrounding walls. They couldn't find the grimoires because Arceus had used the simplest trick every shadow mage learned. He'd sent them into shadow, without a destination. Every economy across Idrine relied on shadow magic to transport their goods to every corner of the world, and everyone paid the obscene prices the Unseen Academy demanded. Those that didn't lost what they were transporting. Still burning from the rage of their realization, Valstus gathered every element they'd mastered. Lightning surged to the tips of their claws. Water from the air froze around their hand. Wind rushed around the lightning and ice. They gently laid that gathered storm where the stone wall became darkness. With raw, magical force, they revealed more of the passage. Black tendrils tried to swirl around the elements and retake the stone behind them. Valstus growled and pushed their magics into a ring. It stretched from the ceiling to the floor. Not a single tendril got past. Valstus could feel all their teeth showing in a predatory smile as the darkness retreated with their every step. When they finally reached the center chamber, the magic shadows faded away. Valstus held up a clawed hand at the sudden flare of witchlight torches. When they'd finished blinking away the spots in their vision, they saw it was empty, except for a plain wooden table and a grimoire with familiar, aged dark blue leather, carved clawed grey hands wrapping around the cover in a dark embrace.
"Well, look who finally found me,"
Lensara declared in her most overbearing, professory tones. "Now get me out of here before I die of boredom," she continued. Valstis sighed. The breath turned into a length of frost and crackling lightning. "Since when can leather and paper die?" they asked, and waited for the grimoire to answer. Dark grey spectral hands with black claws took shape and lifted the grimoire till its cover faced Valstis's direction. "Both decay over time," Lensara said, tisking and sighing with condescension that echoed Archaeus. "Really, Valstis, has this theft dulled what little wits you had? Perhaps you should spend more time studying than collecting," Lensara lectured. "And perhaps you shouldn't insult a dragon deciding your future," Valstis growled in answer. "Oh, come now. We know the information I have on Archaeus is too valuable, unless you enjoy flying around Idrine with barely a clue to go on," Lensara said, more of her grey-clawed hands manifesting. Some paired off to twiddle their thumbs. Gruffbark popped out of the gemstone, and hissed a hiss a cat would envy. "Why dead mage in book?" he demanded, glaring at the floating grey hands gathered on the table. "Because I defied death, and thus far this is the only vessel worthy of me," Lensara answered, her haughty tone undermined by nearly falling flat on her cover. Gruffbark sniggered at the mad scramble of not-quite-solid spectral hands struggling to push up the grimoire. Valstis covered their snout, but couldn't help sharing in the laughter. "If you knew what Archaeus was doing, I doubt you'd be laughing," Lensara accused, when she was upright, silencing the room. "Dragon boss have no time for lies. If mage know, share. If not know, be wordless," Gruffbark shot back. "See here, you magically manifested moron. Your betters are Lensara started and didn't get to finish. Valstis summoned spectral chains tipped with spears that stabbed every dark grey hand into vapor. Each sailed towards Lensara's soul, wrapping the grimoire in layer after layer, muffling her screams until the last one snapped tight under the table. With a snort, they sealed the enchantment and stomped out of the room. "Please be telling Gruffbark, be wordless before he annoy Dragon Boss too much," Gruffbark stammered, and hopped down into the gemstone library.
We thank you for listening to this story. Creating the dragons, books, and magic and shenanigans has been a joy. Find more of Nikolai's stories and Adam's content in the links enclosed. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents either are the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced in any form or by an electronic or mechanical means, including information storage and retrieval systems, without permission in writing from the publisher, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review. No generative artificial intelligence, AI, was used in the writing of this work. The author and narrator expressly prohibit any entity from using this publication for purposes of training AI technologies to generate text, audio, video, including without limitation technologies that are capable of generating works in the same style or genre as this publication. The author reserves all rights to license uses of this work for generative AI training and development of machine learning language models.